Hi there, Chase Urich with my two partners in crime here, Cole McCoy and Chris. Kind of doing a little bit of an interweaved podcast with you guys. Instead of it being just an in the trenches or just a episode of Closer's Corner, we wanted to bring it all together for a special episode here, a special collaboration, because there's a lot of talk going on right now about L.O.A. and new setups, new announcements being put out there. We want to kind of dispel a little bit of that. Chris, break it down for us. What exactly are we going to be breaking down, though?
Yep. So is it a crossover episode, your episode, my episode? Is it a smash up? I always wondered what term works best. Maybe it's a smash up. I like that. So what we want to talk about today is a little bit about licensed only agent. It's a video I did a little bit about on a separate YouTube channel over a year ago. And the beauty of doing things on social media is it demands consistency in the message you put out there. I stated after a little bit of education about what L.O.A. is it wasn't the best fit for an independent agent. But what is it? Let's start there first. It's basically working under another person, corporation, agent, what have you. Maybe your name's not the one on the agent section of the policy. But most importantly, you're not the one being paid from the company. You're not being paid from the insurance company, in other words. So it's important to understand these deviations before we go any further into it, because as new organizations come out with new things, it's important to remember there is nothing new under the sun. And if somebody is an L.O.A. agent, it is what it is, no matter how you dress it up and color it. So we're going to dive in the smash up episode to what an L.O.A. is.
Yep, licensed only agent. And like Chris said, we're going to get into some of those bullet points. But first, we don't want this to be misconstrued as some negative, publicity stunt. We're really trying to bring topics that come to light throughout the week, throughout the day, throughout the month, and educate those on it so that, it's good content. It's good content for everybody out there. So we want to bring both sides of the coin to the table. And Cole, we're going to start off with you have, family who has had an experience with L.O.A. Explain to us, the side in that half where it actually works out for those.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of experience. I myself was a captive agent at one time, but my grandma was also an LOA agent through State Farm, and she loved it. They paid her a salary. She wrote business for her agent, and on that person's policy, the agent that she sold for, their name was on it. So when she left, she doesn't own her book. She doesn't get renewals. She doesn't, that was what she did. That was a job. And so for her, it was exactly what she wanted. She wanted to work for somebody else. She wanted a salary. She was incentivized a little bit to write a policy. She would get paid, for a certain percentage or whatever that the agent had distinguished for her. But at the end of the day, that's what she wanted. And as long as you're going into LOA looking at, you're looking for a JOB, you don't own your book, you want a salary, you want to work for a reputable, and that State Farm is probably a Fortune 100 company. That's a scenario where that can be a good thing if you know what you're getting into. So LOA isn't inherently the most evil thing ever, but as the independent agent, most people, the second that they hear that they don't own their book is where they, you start asking questions and how does this work or whatever. But there are positive aspects to it as long as you know what you're getting into. And so I think that's a good thing to start out the conversation with today, because it's not like we're talking about the worst of the worst thing for certain people. It's not always bad. You just have to know what you're getting into.
There are a lot of successful people out there that just needed, a job. They were looking for a setup that would allow them to go do, certain things in this business. The reason we wanted to bring this episode to you guys, and it's fitting for Cole to bring that up and share that with us, is because this particular topic, we're going to kind of curb it towards the independent agent. If you are an independent agent, you signed up to be an independent agent, LOA is the exact opposite of what you got into the business for. Cole mentioned one of the great points that he made, and you're going to hear Chris touch on it, is you do not own your book of business. You are signing that over to someone else to be the principal of that business. You don't own it, nor do you have any decision-making ability in it. So, Chris, as we talk about some of our key points here, it's 100% factual. Licensed only agent. You can write it, but you don't own it.
One of the other things that I heard that is a myth I think we can probably discuss, with not a lot of research because we've been doing this long enough, is that when you move to a one-check system, when you move to an LOA, where all of your business from all of your carriers are all rolled into one check, they're telling folks that you're going to be paid for years. You're going to be able to retire on it 10, 12, 15 years later. And my point is the average final expense client is, let's say, 68 to 70, right? 65 to 70, would that be fair?
Yeah.
Yep. The average final expense client is not the most financially responsible, not the healthiest person. And I can say in good confidence is probably not going to be a policyholder in 15 years. So we all know from studying the business, you can't build a long-term renewal based off of final expense. It kind of plateaus around a certain amount of time. You can't be successful selling every product under the sun without losing your focus. Maybe a veteran agent can dabble in a little different market, but specialists make the most money. So if your client's not going to be alive in 10 years, you can't be good at everything all at once. To tell an agent that by signing an LOA agreement, you're going to have a retirement source of income, it just doesn't seem factually possible. I mean, we've been, as an organization, around for more than a decade. How many of the clients that were originally sold by Equita are still on the books? How many? Probably not many at all, unfortunately. And it's not that we're not good in the business. It's that that's the nature of the business. So when someone says something to you, think about it and say, does this make common sense? Okay, so you're selling a 45-year-old a mortgage protection policy. It doesn't even pay renewals, let alone signing your book over to another person. If you stay in that company, and God willing, maybe you do, that policy never paid renewals for you to make it for 20 years on that policy. So just take what they're telling you and apply common sense thought to it and decide if it really is the truth.
Yeah, and to go along with that, to compound that particular topic, if that company decides to close up shop, this was a point that you had made in our conversation. You're not going to get paid this 10, 15-year renewal. Companies selling left and right, going out of business left and right. Like you said, we've been in business since 1986. But if a company decides tomorrow to just shut down shop and they want to go do something, they want to sell off to somebody else and, whatever, regardless, they don't have to pay you anything because you do not own that book of business. Unless it's some Fortune 500 company, the chance of them going out of business is always prevalent. But at the end of the day, you're not responsible you're not pigeonholed in to receive anything at all. That was a point that you made that I thought was powerful.
Yeah, there's been a lot of market contraction, and I think Cole can probably speak on that, and then I'll jump back in.
No, the thing I was saying is if that company does sell out, I mean, how likely is it you're going to get a piece of that business if you don't even own it in the first place?
That's a fair point.
That's a great point because there's a reason that they had you sign the LOA agreement, and it's not to make it easier on you. It's really to make it easier on them. So go ahead, Carson. You were going to touch on something else.
So in the last, 12 to 24 months, we've seen a lot of market contraction. IMO selling out to larger hedge funds, groups organizing contraction, and not just the carriers that are available, but the products that are out there. But the whole market's a lot different than it was when we started. So if your organization that you're signing your rights over to decides to no longer be that organization, the person you're betting all of your eggs in that basket, I mean, it could be a lot different, a lot quicker than you expect. Even more importantly, if that person you're signing your rights over to is not the top of the hierarchy anyway, there's already a man above the man. So, I mean, that itself is scary and confusing, Yeah. Fortune 500 is the insurance company. They are mutual of whatever. They are, so-and-so company. There is nobody between that company and there. But when there's a man in the middle between you and the top and the market's constantly changing, you might be loyal to that company, but who's to say that company is here next year?
Yeah, and you completely remove yourself from the driver's seat. That's the point that I really want to stress to everybody out there is you are no longer in control of your business. You're still out there writing business. You're still going to probably see a check come in, and that's what it is now. You are an employee. It is a check. The fact that you've removed yourself out of control and out of the driver's seat, that's the scariest part for me, and that's the biggest thing we want to get across to you guys today. one of the myths that we're going to talk about, and we're going to merge these together actually, because number one, you are captive, and number two, this myth of you're not responsible for chargebacks anymore as a personal producer. That is absolutely silly. At the end of the day, the insurance company is going to be advancing someone. Someone's getting an advance. Someone is going to be responsible to pay that balance back. That debt is going to need to be paid. Right now, the channel is you get the money advanced to you, you're paying the debt back. Somebody's going to be owed that money, regardless of how you slice it. And I'd love to hear you two talk on this. You know, you are captive and you do have debt and you do have roll-ups. And there's no way to spin it other than that. You're going to have to pay the debt back.
Yeah, so they're basically telling you that you're not going to have a chargeback or a roll-up because they're taking the money from the back instead of the front, or however they manipulate the concept. The money was still paid to you. The money is gone. You still owe the money back. So you won't have a chargeback from company A, if you know, and you won't write company A anymore because of the chargeback. But realistically, all the companies are one company, so the money's still gone. There's a captive company out there who says that you don't have to pay for leads, or your lead cost doesn't come out up front because it comes out the back. It's all the same in the end. So there are still going to be chargebacks. To promote the concept that there aren't going to be any roll-ups encourages lazy agents and bad managers. You shouldn't have a confluence of roll-ups if you're managing your agency properly, you're paying attention to problems before they're big, and you put the fire out before it burns the house down. So to say there's no roll-ups and there's no chargebacks is not the truth at all.
Cole?
Agreed. I don't really have much else to say. I don't know if I could say it any better. You know, a lot of independent agents came from one of those organizations that have, I don't know how else to say this. Maybe they have like a really good deal where they help negotiate funerals or something, or you know, they pull leads out of commissions or whatever. All you're doing is, if you have a chargeback, they're just paying you less on your paycheck that week. It's not. It's not that you're not getting it. You're just making less money because you are paying back that chargeback. Maybe they'll say, oh, well, instead of paying the full chargeback, we'll mitigate that and you'll pay it less over time. But that could always change because, again, to highlight, it's not your book. You don't control anything. So, again, I don't know how else to say this. Like, you could bake and wrap a turd, as I like to say, but it's still a turd. I don't know how else to say it. And without being ornery, you can cut that part out if you want, Chase. But it's not your business to say one way or the other what to do with it because you signed it all over. And if I'm a little too passionate about this, like, I'm sorry, but it's just how can you say that you're doing what's best for you and your people if you're an independent agent and you don't own your book of business? It just
And if you're one of those guys out there that's, you know, you're in the 10X club and you love the Grant Cardone stuff, how can you in your right mind talk about massive activity leading to massive results and 10X? How can you? And I posted this the other night. How can you even reference that? Uncle G would laugh at you if he knew that you were talking about 10X this and that, and then you sign your business over. You're not 10Xing your business. You're 10Xing their business. That's the part that's absolutely maddening to me. Let's go to one of the other things, and it's kind of on the same subject, so we'll stay with it. If you're an agency builder out there and you're participating in a setup like this, they're telling you there's no roll-ups. You're hearing that there are no roll-ups. There are most definitely roll-ups, just like the guys talked about for the chargebacks. It's the same thing. I won't go into all the great detail, but at the end of the day, somebody's paying the piper, and it's going to get paid one way or the other, whether it's a communistic approach. Nowadays, you can say a socialistic approach to sharing it, and everybody, however you slice it, doesn't matter. If Billy has 30 grand in roll-ups and chargebacks that hit him today, Billy's responsible from an independent perspective. If Billy goes to a captive setup, Billy may share some of that with the agency, but 30 grand is 30 grand. This guy over here who's independent is going to be responsible. This guy over here who's captive may not be. There's really no other way of slicing and dicing it. It's just a smokescreen, as Ben Bowman would say. You're being told one thing, and what's happening is a totally different thing. Let's talk about just being generally involved in something like this. If you are an agent out there and you're talking to somebody, guys, how would you explain this or kind of sway them to be careful, watch yourself? What would be your words of encouragement to them?
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention is the concept that you have to become an LOA because the hierarchy model is broken. Say I bring on an agent at my commission level, and then I bring on below me, and he brings on an agent below him, and all of a sudden they're doing more production than me, and they want a higher level. So it's the idea of building a deep down line. And now they want to outgrow the person. There are ways that everybody can be compensated fairly without signing everybody else's rights away to somebody else. Is that correct, Chase?
100%.
So if I hire Cole and Cole turns out to be better than me, thank God. That's the whole purpose of hiring and training somebody. Does his growth and my investment in him wash each other out? No. So you don't have to sign away your rights to protect, people from growing or outgrowing each other. And it's just another thing that people are being told that just is not correct. If I was talking to an agent that was considering working for an LOA system, working for any system, I always say it like this: study the information, look at a couple different business models, make sure you subtract all the Kool-Aid and decide which business model is best for you. If you think this model is correct, do it and don't look back. If you don't think it's correct, don't do it. But once you commit to something, give it a fair shake before you back out on it.
I know that agent hotline's blowing up, Cole, as you come back here. What would be your words of encouragement if you were mentoring somebody who had been approached on this?
I love Chris's advice of go all in or don't go in at all. Just know the facts before you go all in. Sorry, agent hotline's going off. So we have agents calling in a house, and I'm hoping someone gets it. But if you're going to go all in, at least know the facts. And if you go into a system like this, know with eyes wide open, knowing that you're not going to own your book, more power to you. And so as long as you know what it is, I know for me, most independent agents that I know wouldn't sign over their book. But, if you're sold on the opportunity of mitigating chargebacks or whatever, obviously we don't believe it's realistic, but go all in. Just know what you're getting into. And that's the best thing I can tell you, because you're doing a disservice to yourself by constantly being 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We would just hate for you to see yourself make a decision where you're stepping into something, giving up ownership, and then realizing that you made a mistake. At least just know what you're getting into.
Yeah, because one thing that we had made mention in our conversations about all of this kind of coming to light is, number one, I'd highly recommend if you're being talked to by somebody about this or approaching you about it, how long have they been in the business? How long has this person been doing what they do, and how successful have they been? There are people that are pitching this right now that have less than 5 years of experience in our industry, and they're talking to people as if they know this. We've got a lot of people here who have been doing this for 12, 13, 15, 18, 20 years. And my point of bringing that up is, we mentioned this earlier, there's only so many ways that you can be paid in this business. This is not anything revolutionary. LOA has been around from the beginning, from the genesis of the insurance industry. So if you're being told that this is something that's totally different, totally revolutionary, I promise you it's not. There are hundreds of shops out there, if not thousands, doing this right now. And it's captive, like we talked about. You don't own your book of business. This is nothing revolutionary. So when you're being told that it is, just know that that's BS. And I totally recommend that you kind of do your due diligence. How long has your builder and your upline been doing this? How successful have they been? If they have less than X amount of years of experience, I recommend that you jump and go find somewhere else to work with, or talk to somebody who is experienced. Because at the end of the day, you should own your book of business. All of the work you put in, all of the effort, all of the hours of you doing this, you should own your book of business. Now, we're going to cut real quick and jump over to a gentleman who has been very successful in this business for many years. For those of you that are prevalent on social media, you probably know him. We're very excited. We're actually, kind of honored to have this guy on with us, because we have zero affiliation. Guys, I'm not blowing any smoke. We have zero affiliations with this guy. but we do know that he's prevalent in social media, very successful at growing and building his own agency. Mr. Jeff Root. We're going to join Jeff. We're going to jump over and go into that interview where we had a chance and an awesome opportunity to spend a few minutes with Jeff and let him share his story. So to set the table, Jeff is a gentleman that made a post on TTC, Tips, Tricks, and Closures on Facebook, for those of you that are insurance professionals. Jeff made a post where he shared his experience on how this particular type of setup, even though he had complete trust, faith, and 100% just confidence that his upline was going to take care of him, how that ended up changing over time. Over 4 or 5 years, he had known these people, and it changed. And he could have taken them to court, could have spent $15,000, $18,000 and taken them to court. But instead, he said, why? $15,000 to go after my 40, and ended up losing $40,000+. So we're going to jump over and share that interview with you guys, and we'll be right back. Hi there, Chase Urick, Cole McCoy, coming to you again. As mentioned, we have a special guest here on this episode of In the Trenches. We are extremely excited to be joined by none other than Jeff Root with Digital BGA. Jeff, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So we are covering the fun topic that we have really started to see a lot more discussion really build up around, which is the L.O.A. setup that's available out there. There is not a stigma, I won't say, I don't want to put a negative connotation around it, but just this conversation that there's a new setup, new way of going about things with L.O.A. And before we get into that, we want to let everybody know, if they haven't visited your podcast in the past, tell us a little bit about Jeff Root. How did you get started in the business? And we'll start there.
Sure. So I started in the business in 2006. I was brought in by Northwestern Mutual, was there for about a year, ended up selling a policy over the phone after purchasing a lead, the very first purchase lead after running through my cold network. Sold over the phone, and haven't looked back since then. So basically, I've just been selling life insurance over the phone. At that point, it was 2007, early 2007. And, I went through a call center for a few years, sold a few thousand policies over the phone, learned how to market online, and started doing it myself on the independent world around 2010. And since then, I've just kind of honed my skills in telesales and online marketing, and just built, a business around that. So you mentioned a podcast before. I had the Modern Life Insurance Selling Podcast. That was around 3 or 4 years ago. Did that for a couple of years. So we have about 50 episodes on there, interviewing other agents, marketing life insurance online, and selling over the phone. Haven't been podcasting there for a few years, but wrote a book called The Digital Life Insurance Agent, which you can find on Amazon. And yeah, all I do is telesales and teach agents how to sell over the phone and market online.
Love it. I love it. And it's your name is synonymous in our business. And we were excited to have you on because of the success you've had in telesales. Cole, I'm going to kick it over to you, my man. Fire away.
Yeah, man. Anytime somebody comes in that's done this at a high level, I prefer to shut up and listen. But I know you've had a lot of experience over the years, and you've done things at a very high level. And one thing that I want people to hear is, we obviously, Jeff, we do things very differently, but there's power in coming together for a common goal, and just giving solid information and helping other agents grow. And there's not really a one size fits all platform out there, and we get to help each other and promote each other. So I think that's a wonderful thing. I respect what you're doing, Jeff, and I got a lot to learn from you, man. So I would just love to hear, I know why we're here is we're talking about all this L.O.A. stuff.
Yeah.
I would love to hear part of your journey as to, how that affected you, and, however that hit you, man. I would just love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so I've been on a couple sides of the L.O.A. arrangement. I mentioned that I was at a call center for a couple of years where I sold life insurance over the phone, literally in a cubicle for a few years, just slinging 5+ policies a day. In that situation, I was fed leads, right? But it was an L.O.A. situation. I was assigning all my commissions to the agency that was, giving me the office, that was doing all the marketing. They had all the skin in the game, really. All I had to do was sell and make a reduced commission. And I thought that was a great setup. It really catapulted me to the level where I sold over a couple thousand policies over the phone during that couple of years. I would not have that experience in underwriting that I do, in telesales, the whole sales process and how to connect with people from all around the U.S. I mean, it's not just my local area I needed to connect with. I needed to learn how to connect with people from the South, New Yorkers, people from California. And so I really learned a lot from that experience, but it was an LOA experience, and it was it was a good experience. In that situation, I didn't have to worry about where my next lead came from. I just got a constant supply of leads, and as long as I could sell, as long as I was doing the activity, it worked out. And that was a good LOA situation. Unfortunately, when I left there, I went independent, and I got hooked up with an IMO where I was paid overrides. This was term business, by the way. And so term business is a little bit different than final expense mortgage protection, where you can get paid directly by the company in a hierarchy. This was more on term business. The max amount you can get is around 95 to 100%. Anything above that, that's street level. Anything above that, you need to be paid directly by your upline. And so that was, basically the upline was receiving the commissions and paying it to me. And that's something where they had control of my business. So what happened was around 2011, I was teaching agents how to do this, how to market online, sell over the phone. I was building a downline. My very first, go at it independently. Because like I said, it's Northwestern Mutual, then this call center, and now independent. And, it was a good relationship because, for 5 years, I met them, I trusted them. They seemed like religious, pious people, and they would never do me wrong, and it was a great relationship for about 4 or 5 years. And I was paid on time every month, my overrides, until one day they just decided to stop paying me. It was a business decision, and there was a little bit more behind that. I took a couple contracts outside of them, which they didn't have, but they just didn't like business going outside of them. So they felt like they had control over me. And so they decided, no, you can't write outside of there. I'm not going to name this firm, by the way. I just want this to be completely agnostic.
Yeah.
More of a learning lesson on what can happen. But they had this control over me. I could either not write outside of them, and at this point, the final expense was coming up, and I took a couple final expense contracts. I actually was able to get more comp. In term, you can have dual writing numbers. I know in final expense and mortgage protection, you can only have one, but you can have dual writing numbers. And I was getting a better deal, and I had some setups where it was just a better opportunity. Like I can make money outside of them as well. And so I started to explore those channels, and then they just kind of pulled in the reins and said, no, you're not doing that. And if you do, we're just not going to pay you anymore. And they owed me around $40,000 in overrides. I'd placed about it was over $4 million of in-force business with them. And then they simply decided to stop paying me because they didn't like how I was running my business. Basically, they thought they had control over me because of those commissions. And they tried to pull me in, and I just, I had to give that up in order to be truly independent.
So, and I would like to clarify too, Jeff. So it started out really well. It was a great business decision. But as you decided to branch out and grow your business, doing what you thought was best for you, then they kind of put a stop, a kibosh to that, and so it started out really good though.
Yeah, it was a great relationship. They promoted me, I promoted them. I put a lot of goodwill into their business. They had a couple of programs, and even though it wouldn't come back to me, I would let other people know, like great program, like the processing works, everything works great. And, they felt like they had this control over me, that they were able to make a move like that. And anyway, it's, with a lot of the stuff happening out there today, there's a lot of, LOA situations about to come about or have, obviously, LOA has been around a long time, but a lot of uplines out there are about to start motivating their agents to be LOA and spinning it off as something that is good for them. And yeah, there are some good, I guess, agents can benefit in some ways, but not in a way that is viable for them. So I would say that if you are buying your own leads and you're propositioned with an LOA contract, don't take it ever. If you have skin in the game, the only reason I would ever take an LOA contract, and it's fine if you're to take an LOA contract, is if somebody's providing you the leads and you just want to be a salesman and just and dial on those leads and not have to worry about the ups and downs of lead flow or lead vendors or whatnot.
Well, that was one of the things when I saw your post in TTC, it really struck a chord with me because of the current climate and certain things that are being said in the marketplace that are just factually untrue. We've touched on some of those just a little while ago when Chris and Cole and I were talking. Number one, at the end of the day, our business has roll-ups. There is debt. There are chargebacks. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you dice it, at the end of the day, you are going to have chargebacks. But you may not be responsible for those chargebacks in theory if you're LOA, but you're still paying for them. And so when I saw your post, there were certain things. Number one, your experience really struck a chord because, $40,000 is $40,000. That was business that you worked your butt off to get on the books, to generate. And then at one point when you told the story of, I had to either put $15,000 up and go elsewhere, fly to them to battle this, or I'm just going to walk away and lose 40 grand that I spent my time and effort to generate. There's a lot of people out there that I just don't want to see go down that road of you believe you're building a book of business, you're out there grinding every day. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. LOA's been around like a long time, like you said. You're going to turn over control of that business to somebody else when you go on that setup. There's no other way about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even if you sign a contract, I had a contract in place. You mentioned it. I had a contract in place, but this firm was in another state. I would have to fly over there to battle that. I'd have to find an attorney on their home court. And, it was the cheapest one was going to cost me $15,000 for a retainer. And that was just retainer. It could have gone higher than that. That was just the initial cost to recoup $40,000 and my time, if I was able to recoup it, and probably let it drag out in court for months or even a year or whatnot. And that just wasn't worth it to me. So I just walked away from it. But the thing is, even if you have a contract in place and that's, and you sign something, there's going to be clauses in there that you'll need to look at, like where, if this goes to arbitration, if there's any legal action, what state? If you're in a different state, I got to fly all over there and find an attorney over there. Like, is that even worth it? I mean, even if there's a contract, I had a contract in place, it still didn't matter, and that's important to mention as well. Just because you're dangled something that, contractually we're going to pay you out. I had that, and it still didn't work out. So, that's important as well. I mean, it's definitely worth mentioning. I'm glad you brought that up.
If there's people out there right now that believe that this is something new, this is a totally different setup. I'm not going to use that word, Cole. I'm not going to use the word. If it's a totally new setup, this has never been done before. It's been done forever. LOA's been around forever. At the end of the day, it's being kind of polished up, as Cole said earlier, to be something a little bit different for a little bit more of a misrepresentation of what it really is. At the end of the day, the big key points that I struggle with and it kills me to see is you don't own your book of business. And at the end of the day, if you're in a leadership position, goodness gracious, to say that your commissions will be shared with other people who may not be performing at your level, that for me is also extremely scary because our business is a meritocracy. And you eat what you kill, essentially. And, one of the things is you got, for most people who came in the independent side of things, Cole and I talked about this a little while ago, you got into this because you wanted to be able to raise your income. You want to be able to have that freedom to come and go as you please. Some of these setups, the LOA completely is the opposite end of the spectrum on that. Whenever you signed your agreement, Jeff, and you were doing your thing, you said that it helped you get going in the business. When did you reach that educational point where you were like, you know what? now I'm ready to go, to go do something a little bit different. Was it strictly when they just changed on you and tried to invoke the agreement on you?
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it was a blessing because I got to start Digital BGA right after that. But at the same time, at that point in time, it was crushing to me. It absolutely was. And to know that money that is already enforced, that you're getting paid on, is just not going to be delivered to you, was crushing. So yeah, I would say that motivated me to take things into my own hands and build a better platform than what I was using. So I had my complaints on the platform that I was using, but I was able to, and it took me a couple of years and a lot of development costs, but I was able to build a better platform. So in the grand scheme of things, it all ended up working out okay. Great actually, but I'd be lying if I still didn't say that it was probably one of the most frustrating things I've gone through to know how hard I worked for that business and to not get paid on it. So that's part of business though. You're going to take your licks, you learn from it, you move on. But one of the reasons I want to come on this is to save other agents from going through that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody in the business.
Advice for anybody out there right now that's potentially in one of those situations where they're being told, hey, this is going to be a great deal for you. This is going to be awesome. Here's why. What would you say are some of the key indicators or key items to look at and pay attention to?
So first of all, if you have a choice, don't take it. I understand that some of these organizations are going to give you the choice to be LOA or direct, and they're going to push you towards the LOA, but you don't have to. So one, you can make the choice. Two, if you're being forced into an LOA situation, walk. I know getting releases and everything is going to be tough, and you might have to wait out 6 months for some carriers. There's, I've been hearing a lot from carriers right now that, that they're fed up with a lot of the politics going on within BGAs who aren't releasing, and it affects their business because if they sit out 6 months. So companies, I won't name any companies here, but there are companies that are going the route where you don't have to get a release. They're going to put that in their agent contracts and their IMO contracts, where if you just tell us, hey, I want to be gone from this company, you can still produce, and you still have to wait 6 months, but you can produce and get commissions, and then they'll release you from that carrier. I think that's going to be a huge shift if that really happens, and a lot of companies are able to implement that. And a lot of them are looking at that in the final expense space right now because of these games BGAs are playing with LOA contracts and not releasing, and so on. So as far as advice, make the choice to always get paid direct by the carrier, and move if you're being forced into it. You don't have to take that contract, and I don't recommend it, especially if you're paying for your own leads and your own overhead.
Cole, you got anything? Man, Jeff, I appreciate you, man. I know you're an absolute killer in the business, and I'm sure there's multiple millions of dollars a year that your firm produces. So we appreciate your knowledge and your expertise and your help. Thanks for coming and joining us. My advice is this. If you need an internship in the business, look at it like a paid internship. LOA or a captive organization may be a good internship for 3 or 4 months to kind of get that sales experience under your belt. I promise you, you can write a bunch of policies and you leave, your upline is going to get paid. Go start at 40 or 50% where they're helping you get leads. And from there, now transition to get the big boy contracts, right? Know what you want to accomplish. There are a lot of people that don't need experience that can come to a completely independent space, and they can be organized and step into that situation, sell at a very high level. I think, as long as you're willing to be honest with yourself and transparent, just know what you're getting into. And if you want to be your own business owner and you want to say, these are my clients, LOA is not the answer, because at the end of the day, they're going to have your business card. They're going to call you. But at any time, your IMO can pull the rug out from under your feet. And that is not your business anymore. Although you did all the work, you bought the lead, you went and saw them, you sold the policy, you took their calls, you had to go out and save it or do an amendment or whatever. You're putting so much work for them to just be able to take complete control at any time. And so we just want to inform you guys that are listening to at least go in, again, we've said this 18,000 times, eyes wide open. And if you're okay with the LOA side of it, at least you have the information that you need to make a decision. Obviously it's not hard to figure out where we stand on this, but as long as you're willing to be honest with yourself and the people that are bringing you into that situation are being completely transparent, you're comfortable with it, more power to you. But again, if you want to be a business owner, LOA is not the answer.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw out there just right now, and this isn't a shot at any competitors or anything like that, but like you see on social media, a lot of people getting flack for maybe a little bit of misleading, maybe a little bit of boasting up, commission offers. Hey, we offer up to this, highest commissions in the industry. Guys, this is totally different than that. That's marketing. This is something you need to pay close attention to. This isn't, one competitor bashing another competitor. This is you needing to make sure you're in tune and in the loop on what's going on. Because if you go start your own business down the road, but you sign over the lease to the place or the ownership to the place before you really even get started, and then you pour your blood, sweat, and tears into the business, somebody else is going to reap that benefit. So this is totally different than the stuff you see where we're kind of poking fun, or somebody's poking fun at somebody else for saying we offer 140% contract. Totally different. This is you needing to make sure that before you sign on that dotted line, you got into this business to be an entrepreneur, to be an independent contractor, to build your business, reap the benefits, come and go as you please. Make sure that before you make that decision, you are 100% in on that decision. You understand what it's all about. And if you don't know, this is super cool because we're reaching out to Jeff. We don't even work with Jeff. We know Jeff because of his name in the business and how successful he's been. So we're super appreciative that he jumped on with us. Reach out to somebody, even if you don't know him, who's in the independent channel, and ask them, what is this about? What is this really going to do for me? How is it going to benefit me? How can it negatively affect me? Before you do something that can just take your business tomorrow. Jeff, I can't say thank you enough. I know I reached out to you on a whim, and you were super accommodating, and your story is powerful. Cole and I talked about this leading up to it. We are super grateful that you spent time with us today. You're a killer in the business, and we appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Jeff, how can we find you?
Yeah, so digitalbga.com. If you're into telesales, check us out.
Digitalbga.com. Awesome, Jeff. We appreciate you a lot, and we may have to rope you in again on some other type of topic sometime.
All good, man. I'm happy to do it. I love doing this type of stuff. Anything to educate agents. Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Colt, as always, I appreciate you, my man. We'll do this again soon.
Amen.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye.
That was good stuff. We really do appreciate Jeff spending some time with us. Once again, unsolicited. We don't even work together, but it was a great experience for him to share with us to kind of highlight this topic. And so as we work on closing this out, Cole McCoy, what parting shot would you like to leave here for all of those viewers?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's nothing new under the sun. There's only so many ways to do this thing. This business is extremely simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And what I can tell you is that I guess the best way to say this, if you decide to go the broker model with one of these groups that's giving the LOA option, do you honestly believe that you're going to get the support, the hands-on underwriting? Are you going to be treated like redhead stepchild? The answer is yes. But if you go into the LOA thing, obviously you'll get all the resources that they're touting. But when you're stepping into that, ask the question: if I go broker, is anything going to change? Are you honestly going to be able to give me the time and support that you're giving to these LOA guys? And I could promise you, just take notes, track changes. It will be less because they're not making as much money on you.
Gotcha. Chris Smith,
Common sense.
Our viewers.
Yeah, common sense just says if you change the entire company and you allow 5% to stay outside of the big change, the 95% are going to get the support, and the 5% will be there until they go away.
It's good stuff. Well, we appreciate each and every one of you guys watching this out there. Once again, I made the mention a moment ago. If you don't have somebody that's been doing it for some time and you want to pick the brain of somebody who's been around, reach out, drop a comment, private message us, contact us. We'll have all of our information posted below right here on the other side of Cole, on each side of him, where you can reach out and ask these questions before you sign on the dotted line. Once again, it's imperative that you do your due diligence, because once you sign on that dotted line, your business now becomes their business. You go from independent to captive, no matter how you slice it, how you dice it. Go spend a few minutes and just research. Google what LOA in the insurance agent, in industry means, and do a little research on it, and you'll find what you're looking for. We're more than happy to help you with that as well and talk to you about that. Guys, I appreciate you, and we'll do it all over again next week.
Alrighty.
Have a good one, man.